Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Pennywise the Dancing Clown has a way of making fear feel almost fun, if fun meant absolute terror and a lifelong fear of storm drains. Long before he started haunting the streets of Derry, he was known as the Deadlights, a shape-shifting cosmic creature from a place outside our universe. After crash landing on Earth, he decided that humans, especially kids, were the tastiest source of fear around. Every 27 years, he wakes up hungry and ready to put on his favorite clown act, turning Derry into his personal buffet. Behind the goofy grin and balloon tricks hides something far older and nastier than anyone can imagine. Pennywise feeds on fear, but he also enjoys putting on a show. He taunts, teases, and toys with his victims like he's auditioning for the world's most terrifying circus. The Losers Club eventually stood up to him, proving that courage and friendship can outshine even ancient evil. But Stephen King being Stephen King, he never leaves things completely settled. Later stories drop eerie hints that Pennywise might still be lurking somewhere, waiting for another cycle to begin. Maybe he's asleep. Maybe he's watching. But if a red balloon drifts by, it's probably time to start running. Good news though, the new trailer for it, Welcome to Derry, is out, and it promises we'll be seeing Pennywise back in action in a TV show now, if you dare. Randall Flagg, The Stand, The Dark Tower, and more. Randall Flagg is the guy who shows up uninvited to every Stephen King story and somehow steals the show. He's got more aliases than a con artist. Walter Paddock, The Man in Black, Martin Broadcloak, and none of them sound like someone you'd want to meet in a dark alley. He's the ultimate mix of charm and chaos, a magical troublemaker who spreads destruction just because he can. Think of him as the universe's most persistent prankster, except his pranks usually involve plagues, explosions, and the end of civilization. Flagg first caused mayhem in The Stand, turning post-apocalyptic America into his personal playground. Then he popped up in The Eyes of the Dragon as a royal advisor who framed a prince and practically destroyed a kingdom, because apparently world-ending magic wasn't dramatic enough. His biggest gig came in the Dark Tower series, where he messed with Roland Deschain, flirted with dark gods, and tried to take over the multiverse like it was just another Tuesday. Over the years, actors like Matthew McConaughey and Alexander Skarsgård have taken turns playing him, proving that evil can be both terrifying and weirdly good-looking. Flagg never really dies. He just takes a break, changes names, and starts the chaos all over again. Christine from Christine. Christine, the 1958 Plymouth Fury from Stephen King's imagination, has more personality than most people, and none of it is good. She's sleek, red, and gleaming with menace. The kind of car that makes you look twice before realizing something about her feels wrong. When Arnie Cunningham, a shy, awkward teen, buys her, everything in his life starts to change. His confidence grows, his attitude hardens, and his humanity begins to fade, as if the car is slowly taking over. Christine isn't content just being owned. She wants to own back. She becomes possessive, vengeful, and terrifyingly alive. Anyone who mocks Arnie or threatens to come between them soon meets an unfortunate end under her shining chrome. What's worse, no matter how much damage she takes, she somehow restores herself to perfection, like she's fueled by pure hatred and obsession. Stephen King turned Christine into a story about obsession and possession, where a car becomes a reflection of one boy's darkest impulses. In John Carpenter's film version, she feels frighteningly real, with rumbling engines, sharp headlights, and music that seems to come from something alive. By the end, Christine is crushed into scraps, but a single twitch of metal hints that her spirit still lingers, waiting for another ride. The Overlook Hotel from The Shining. The Overlook Hotel might look like the perfect winter getaway, but it's really more of a 5-star nightmare with room service from hell. Hidden deep in the Colorado mountains, it's the kind of place where the walls have ears, the ghosts have manners, and the boiler has anger issues. When Jack Torrance takes a job as a caretaker, he thinks he's getting peace and quiet to write his big novel. What he actually gets is a haunted building that slowly drives him mad, kind of like Airbnb, but with more murder. The Overlook doesn't just have ghosts, it is the ghost. Every hallway hums with bad memories, mob hits, suicides, and one very bloody elevator. The hotel feeds on isolation and fear, whispering to Jack until he's ready to trade his family for an axe. Even the hedge maze outside seems alive, twisting itself around anyone foolish enough to wander in. In Stephen King's world, the Overlook is a hungry monster disguised as a fancy hotel lobby, and just when you think it's gone, Dr. Sleep proves the place never really dies. Some hotels check you in and out, but the Overlook checks you in and keeps you forever, especially if 237 happens to be your lucky number. This time, maybe skip that one. Cujo from Cujo. In the 1983 movie Cujo, man's best friend becomes man's biggest mistake. Cujo starts off as a lovable, droopy St. Bernard, sweet, clumsy, and way too big for its own good. Then he pokes his nose into a bat cave, gets bitten, and everything goes downhill fast. Before long, The friendly furball turns into a drooling, growling tank of pure rage. It's like Lassie took a wrong turn into a horror movie. Donna Trenton, played by Dee Wallace, just wants her car fixed when she and her son Tad drive out to the camper place. Instead, the car dies, and Cujo's waiting outside, ready to turn the family sedan into a very small, very sweaty prison. The tension is brutal. Just a mom, her terrified kid, and a 200-pound dog who's basically an engine of drool and destruction. The final showdown is pure chaos. Donna smacks Cujo with a baseball bat. The bat breaks, and for a second, it looks like she's done for, until she grabs a gun and finishes the job. It's messy, terrifying, and weirdly heroic. Cujo might not be supernatural, but he's proof you don't need ghosts to make people scream. Sometimes one bad dog is nightmare enough. The mist creatures from the mist. The monsters in the mist are the kind that make you want to pull the blanket over your head and never ever look outside again. One minute it's a normal day in a small Maine town, and the next, a thick white fog rolls in carrying some of the weirdest, creepiest creatures Stephen King ever dreamed up. There are tentacles that snatch people faster than you can scream, bugs the size of pigeons that shoot acid, and flying things that treat humans like snacks. It's basically nature gone rogue with extra teeth. The real chaos kicks in when a group of survivors get stuck inside a grocery store. At first, everyone's worried about what's outside. Then they realize the people inside might be just as dangerous. Between the tentacle monsters, giant spiders, and religious doomsday speeches, it's hard to tell which side of the glass is scarier. And then there's the behemoth, a massive creature so big it makes buildings look like Legos. By the time it shows up, you realize the monsters aren't the only problem. Hopelessness is. The mist proves that sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's lurking in the fog. It's what panic does to people when they think the fog will never lift. The Crimson King from the Dark Tower series. The Crimson King is basically the final boss of Stephen King's entire universe. The big, red, reality-breaking bad guy who wants to pull down existence just because he can. He's like if the Joker, Sauron, and your least favorite math teacher had a cosmic baby. Most of his chaos plays out in the Dark Tower series, but he sneaks into other King stories too, just to remind everyone he's still out there making trouble. His goal? Pretty simple. Destroy the Dark Tower, which happens to be holding up all of reality, and then sit on top of the rubble like if it's his new throne. He doesn't really get his hands dirty, though. He sends out all his evil interns, people like Randall Flagg, to do all the heavy lifting while he hides in the shadows, laughing and being generally terrifying. By the time Roland the Gunslinger finally reaches him, the mighty Crimson King is stuck on a balcony, throwing stuff like an angry toddler. His big defeat isn't even a dramatic shootout. It's literally someone sketching him and erasing him out of existence. For a being who wanted to rule the multiverse, that's one heck of a quiet exit. Evil may be eternal, but apparently it's also erasable. The Langoliers, 4 past midnight. The Langoliers are what happens when Stephen King asks, what if time itself had a cleanup crew? In 4 past midnight, a group of passengers wakes up mid-flight to find that everyone else has vanished, the plane's on autopilot, and the world below is weirdly dead. Food tastes like cardboard, sound feels muffled, and the air just sits there. It's like the universe forgot to turn itself back on. Then they hear it, a faint ticking noise that gets louder and louder until it sounds like the world's hungriest lawnmowers are coming for dinner. That's when the Langoliers show up, flying metallic meatballs with rows of razor teeth, chopping up everything left behind in the past. They don't kill people because they're mean, they just clean up yesterday like it's their job. Unfortunately, if you're still hanging out in yesterday, you're on the menu. The TV movie gave them some truly wild 90s CGI, making them look like Pac-Man's evil cousins. But despite the goofy effects, the idea sticks with you. The Langoliers aren't monsters you can shoot or run from. They're time itself telling you to move on or get eaten. Moral of the story? Don't be late. Ever. And speaking of monsters that aren't quite what they seem, what if some villains were actually right all along? Find out in our next video, When the Villain is Right, the most misunderstood horror characters explained in 10 minutes.